Is that the right? Okay, let me get this around here. My vape's over here. My stuff's all over here. Cool. Get this done here. This would be cool if I could see everything from this side. I don't know if I can or not. Analytics maybe? No, because that's right now. Will this work? No. Anyways. Welcome back, everyone. What I'm going to be doing is, well, I'm going to be making a vase. And the way I'm going to be doing that is I'm going to turn it on the lathe. But I have a bunch of these squares. They're 5x5, which was a screw up from a previous job. However, for this, it's rather serendipitous. So, I'm going to be marking centers and then the different radii. And what I'm going to do is, once all these are marked, this will go onto the bandsaw. I'll cut out the outside radius, and the inside radius I'll turn out. And I think, if I do it right, I can turn through one layer, just like a straight channel through, basically, and preserve the inner core still with the center mark, so that I can use that in a future project, possibly. I'm not sure on that part. That's more of an experiment. So, while I'm doing this, and I want this to be like a once a month thing, like the first Friday of the month, I want to answer every question that's asked of me about any type of anything. Projects, personal stuff, philosophy questions, manliness questions, anything you want me to go over in further depth of the previous month and answer the first Friday video of the next month. So this one is just me marking this stuff out and going through a few questions with y'all. And if you can, hop over on my Facebook group. It's Knightsmith. It has, well, has 100 and some or 300 some people in there now. 365 members. And just put in a question. I think you're automatically added, I think. I don't know. I don't know settings on a lot of things. So, let's get to it. All right, I'm going to place 3 of these aside to start with, because that is for something special. And I'll talk about that later in the stream, if I get through all this stuff. Now, the tools I'm going to be using are a compass, this square center finder, which this one's for Rockler. I mean, you can get them. You can get them cheap. It's just handy because it already has a square edge here, and since these are square, I can just butt it up, run a line, and wherever the 2 lines intersect, that's my center mark. So there's that. And then this guy here, and this is just going to be used to help determine the different diameters I'm going to be using off of this, or in conjunction with the square. Grab 2 pencils, and I grab my computer so I could see if there's any updates or any what's going on, any questions that roll in while I'm talking. My friend Mike did give me a bunch of questions through Messenger, so I'll be answering and talking to a few of those. So, like I said, let's get started on all this. Let's see, where's his first question? All right, what am I making? That's about the first one I answered that. Do's and don'ts, things you may No, the biggest mistake I ever made while cutting, there's a few of those, alternate uses for what you were creating. Oh, the biggest mistake I made while cutting. I don't know. Well, it does. I guess it would have to go in line with the catch line for my channel here, one kerf at a time, because the biggest mistake I made was actually cutting on the wrong side of the line. And you have to think of a kerf as the material the saw blade removes. The saw blade is not a zero thickness plane like this here. Let's say if this was a saw, this would be like a 3/16 inch kerf. Most saw blades have about a 1/8 inch kerf. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I guess the biggest mistake I've made was not accounting for that kerf in a project. This one's a little bit embarrassing, but I had to cut 36 strips out of a piece of plywood, and when I got to the end, I noticed that the last piece was a few inches shorter than it should have been, which is a problem. So I had to run out and actually get a whole other sheet of plywood that, if I had thought it through in the first hand, not only would I save myself a lot of grief, I would have saved myself about 50 bucks. Because I was using, high grade plywood, plus the time it takes to drive out there and the time it takes to, come back, wear and tear on the vehicle, gas money. I ended up going out to lunch. So, and if I had remembered that little kerf thing, would have saved myself a lot of money, a lot of time, and I could have just incorporated that into the design one way or another. And at the time, 50 bucks was a lot of money for me. That's still a lot of money to me, but it's not as catastrophic now if I overspend by 50 bucks or whatever. Do's and don'ts. Well, the biggest don't is don't ever get comfortable with a process or a tool. I find that when you get confident with something, you get cocky, and you either make mistakes or you end up hurting yourself or hurting someone else. So, always respect the tool. Imagine every tool, everything that's in that shop is designed to kill you. Because it can and it will. Running joke on the archive is grinders are flesh-eating monsters that are just waiting for you to slip up. And while it's funny, it's true. I've been bitten by my grinder, my angle grinder, many times. More than I'd like to admit. I was an idiot cutting something just over my leg, went through, sliced my leg up. I've had it blow up in my face, take chunks out of my fingers, out of my chest once, a couple times out of my forearms. I've had a grinder set me on fire. I was wearing my leathers, and I did not notice a buildup in one of the folds as I was sitting down grinding away at something, trying to make something shapely and pretty. And yeah, that was an interesting afternoon. But I've been set on fire a few times, actually. Once I actually set my beard on fire while blacksmithing. I was doing what's called a faggot weld. Now, don't laugh, it's not a sexual joke or anything. It actually comes from older English, which means a fag is a stick, a faggot is a bundle of sticks. And that also refers to the type of weld. I had a bunch of 1/4-inch bars. I was trying to make a basket cage. And I was going to forge weld the ends down, twist it, and then untwist it, and push it together. And that creates that nice basket. Well, that was my second or third time welding, and I had a much bigger beard than I have now. And I picked up the piece, which was around 2200 degrees Fahrenheit. I was looking at it, my beard was out. I wasn't even think about it. Caught my face on fire. If you want to know terror, true terror, light your face on fire. That is, it's an adrenaline rush. Alternate uses for what I'm creating. Well, right here, it's just a pattern of just concentric circles that I'm going to stack onto each other and glue. There are numerous uses for doing something like this. I mean, I'm making a vase. However, you could make, bowls like this. You could make different holders and stuff, little pots. This could be the starting point for making a what is this thing called? A lamp. You know how they usually have a little shapely piece and then the lighting fixture on top of it. So this could be the starting point for a lamp. A little pour jug type thing. You could, a shorter version of this could be an inkwell. For all the potheads out there, you could, instead of doing, shapely, you could make it smooth and make a steamroller out of it, I guess. You could make a glue applicator using the same method. Anything that makes a tube, basically, you would do this way. Beer cozy. So there are a number of different applications you could use this for. However, it's not anything that's really set in stone. It's just up to your own imagination. Items people should make and not buy. And the difference. Oh boy, this is a loaded question. And this is one that is personally aimed at me because instead of running to the store, I'll run into the shop and, build something for myself. And, if my shop time actually is the $30 an hour that I bill people for, then if I spend 2 hours in there making something and I can go to the store and buy it for $5, however, there are a few caveats to that. If you want something that's intrinsically handmade, or if you want something that is 100% unique, make in the shop. If you want to get better at doing something, or just for the sake of understanding how something is made, make it in the shop. I forget who it was. I want to say it's Thomas Edison, but I'm not 100% sure. They're obsessed with cameras when they were younger. And what they ended up doing was taking a bunch of stuff apart to learn how it worked. But they didn't know how to put it back together. And it angered their parents. I think it's Thomas Edison. I could be wrong. If you guys do know, let me know in the comment section below, because this will bug me to no end if I don't get the right the right person attributed to that. Let's see here. What else is there? Things to make and not buy. I'd say the biggest difference is if you want something for a special purpose, like our bed, for instance. I could have bought a bed frame, a steel bed frame for like 50 bucks, 100 bucks, and I spent almost that, if not that, a little bit more, in wood before I even, even started working on it. The difference is, I wanted that bed 3 foot tall. I wanted a slat bed that would encapsulate the sides. I didn't want to have a box spring. So slat beds are, I think, I don't know, I've never actually bought a slat bed. My family owned a mattress store for several years, so I know a lot about mattresses. I think I'll go a few higher. That'll be nice. So I know a few things about mattresses, and I wanted something that was going to be. The apartment's getting worked on, if you couldn't tell. I wanted something that was going to be sturdy, and I wanted something that I was going to be proud of. I wanted something that was going to be unique. I wanted to hone my skills and try a few different joint techniques that I've never tried before. And it really worked out for me. It's one of those things that could have been a hit or miss. But I took my time, I planned it out, I did the whole thing in AutoCAD, and I remembered kerfing. And, this is one thing that you need to always take into account too, the actual size of materials. I actually just wrote this chapter in my book, a few things that, a few beginner mistakes. Like a 2x4 isn't actually 2 inches by 4 inches. It is 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. Things like that. Always look up the actual dimensions. Never go after the common names for a piece. Because that's gotten me into trouble too. Let me just make sure I'm still recording and see if anyone's joined me. Ooh. Do I have any watches? I have 1 watcher and 1 thumbs up. I'm still recording, cool. Okay. Oh, better than no watchers, I suppose. Hey. How do I regen this? Okay. Now, I do have a few more here. I want to save these for... This is going to be the prototype, because these are slightly more dinged up pieces than these. I want to try and redo the shaving dish. Because, well, I screwed it up royally. And I didn't think of that. No, this is one more do and don't, I guess. But it's going to need more explanation than I can give here. But it ended up cracking and splitting and warping. So, Jordan Marvin, if you are watching, that is why I never added one to the... That is why I never added one to the, my Etsy store. Because I didn't have the time to, mess with one and then get it working the right way. Okay, let's see. Proper tool maintenance. Keep your sharp tool sharp. There's thousands of different things, and each tip is usually specified to that tool. Keep your sharp tools sharp. Clean your files. Don't store them together in a drawer because they will rub on each other and wear themselves out. Anything that spins at high velocity, check it before you spin it at high velocity. Make sure everything's greased and lubricated so it runs smooth. Make sure your PPE is not damaged. That is a big one, because even though it's not a tool itself, I still consider it a tool because it keeps you safe, keeps you alive. PPE, personal protective equipment like face shields, hearing plugs, dust masks. Really, that sort of stuff, even aprons. Make sure it's in good working order because that stuff could mean the difference between life and death, or missing a couple fingers, an eye, having to say what 10,000 times when you're 40. Those things really do make a difference, and on several occasions they have saved my life when either there was a mistake or I was just negligent. So yeah, that's one thing I cannot stress enough. Check your PPE before you start working. And that should just go across every industry. You know, every industry, every hobby, every sport. Always check your equipment. Let's see. Mistakes I still make today. Oh, hell, that could be a chapter in the book all by itself. My two biggest mistakes are hubris and time, not necessarily time management, but I overestimate or underestimate how long projects take. I do that a lot. I want that one separate. That one's going to be the foot that gets clamped into the chuck itself. Yeah, keeping an eye on my time is difficult for me because I will. That lead's about to go. I will vastly underestimate the time something takes very often. And, I mean, when you're billing for it afterwards, that's not such a big deal. However, when you're trying to do an estimate or something, it's a nightmare. Plus, if you have a personal life, you want to be able to keep a rein on that as well. So... Ah, bugger. How to save on supplies. There is no real great way to save on supplies. You can go dumpster diving. You can repurpose a lot of things. That's the best way to save on supplies. If you're going on tools, find someone who does yard sailing. I got a $300 anvil for like 20 bucks, which is definitely, you know, hugely advantageous. Let's see. But stuff like that. Learn how to repair things yourself. But materials by themselves, a lot of times you get what you pay for. Know what you're getting way ahead of time. Only buy the stuff. Bulk your orders as much as possible. And have somewhere to store them safely. That's a huge one that no one gets. Because, well, kind of like my example earlier of having to go out and get another piece of plywood. If I had the time and space to store 5 or 6 sheets of plywood at a time, I would. Especially seeing as how I don't have a car that can support me getting plywood. I have to get a ride from somebody with a truck or an SUV to get all my sheet goods. If I was able to do, you know, so at this point in time, I have to either get an Uber, which is stupid expensive for doing stuff like that, or you have to call in a favor, which is expensive in a completely different way. Which you don't want to be doing that all the time either. So yeah, bulk your orders as much as possible. And regardless, you should try to do that whenever possible in life in general, just because you always get things at cheaper rates. Like when you're going to the grocery store and stuff, you can always get things cheaper when you bulk it, or you can get things cheaper on certain days because of specials and stuff. So it just makes sense. Let's see. What time to quit for the day? This is one I struggle with. I'm also not typical because I only sleep like 4 hours a night. So I'm not the best person to give you here's a hard number advice. So I'll say the best time to quit for the day is before you start making mistakes, before you fatigue yourself either mentally or physically. Sometimes one is not always the same as the other, and don't push yourself. When your hands get shaky, you're not doing your best work. You're not cutting the straightest lines. You could lose a finger, or if your mind is distracted, you're not going to cut right, or you'll get frustrated, or you'll try and rush things. You'll make a mistake. You'll end up costing yourself more money. You could cost yourself a finger. So listen to yourself, listen to your mind, listen to your body. If you're getting overly frustrated with a project, time to call it a day. Come back tomorrow. Or go have lunch or something. I try to wrap up the noise in my apartment around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. That's just me trying to be a conscientious neighbor. Currently, I have a couple neighbors who aren't so conscientious about several things, but that's a whole other matter. Let's see. So, yeah, that's maintaining your body as well, for the most part. Oh, he does say proper maintenance of your most important tool, your body. Yes, your body is your most important tool. It's nothing else will work without your body being there. And your body does include your mind, so you can't You can't say, you know, well, I have a CNC, I don't have to be there to physically work. Yeah, well, you have to be there mentally to get it programmed. You need to be there to monitor the machine, make sure it's not screwing up, make sure it's not, you know, burning out bits or snapping bits, make sure it's cutting the right way, remove any large chips. So even with the CNC machine where you press a button and you can walk away, you really still have to be there, even on occasion, to monitor it. So your body really is your most important tool. Take care of it and definitely maintain it. Feed it, get sleep, make sure you get plenty of water. All of these things are very important, and it even contributes to your safety, your work output, your workflow. If you start screwing up, you're not going to have the production output that you want. And at the end of the day, do you really want to produce a half-assed product that you're not proud of because you wanted to push yourself an extra hour? It's not worth it. This life is too short to be doing stuff like that. Trust me. I know too many people who are in the grave that live their lives like that, regretted every moment of it, and now there's nothing left. How do I continue a project if the machine breaks down? This is a good one. Because this does happen to me from time to time. And I still only one watcher, but I'm still doing good on time and everything. Awesome. The best way to continue on a project if your machine breaks. The best way is don't break your machine. Maintain your machines in such a way that it don't break. Now, I do understand that things do happen. You forget to oil something, you forget to change, whatever. Always have spares. And if you can, have an equivalent hand tool. Like for me, I have several saws. I have a few miter blocks. I always keep in stock several band saw blades. Well, not always, but I try my best to. Several jigsaw blades. And when all of that stuff stops, I do have coping saws and stuff. And I've had to use my coping saws a couple times when I was dumb enough to not restock my band saws to make a few delicate cuts that I needed. So always keep your stuff in working order, and you shouldn't have that problem. Always keep a stock of, you know, consumables on hand. And consumables are everything from, you know, tool blades, abrasives, oil for oil and your honing stones, screws, nuts, bolts, glue, sandpaper. Always try your best to keep a stock of it around, and always maintain that stock. You should know that there's a level at which you can still work off of for maybe 2 days, but you should buy it 2 days prior. That way, if something happens and you burn through it real fast, or you drop it, you know, let's say it's a box of sandpaper and you drop it in a puddle of something, or you throw it out by accident, you're not screwed. Especially if there's a deadline. Because there's nothing worse than having to run out to the store 3 times within a day because you've run out of something and you're just trying to rush through a project and it just keeps eating up hour. So there are so many times, so many hours wasted that I've had where I've done that. I remember I used to make boomerangs for my one friend, Ben. he would actually finish the boomerangs. I would just cut the blanks out of Luan. And I got really good and really fast with a jigsaw by doing that, because I made 25 cents per boomerang blank. I could cut out 5 at a time, and I was cutting out, I think, five cuts. And I was doing something. It ended up working out to be like $35 an hour cutting boomerang blanks. So not too shabby. Not shabby at all. But yeah, there was a couple times where he did have a big order. I remember he had an order for like Australia or something, or Australians were in the United States, and they wanted to give out boomerangs as a favor, for a party favor for their wedding, for their reception. So I had a huge order of blanks to make, and I mean, he had a huge order to finish. And I ran through saws because I was rushing and I didn't have any stocked. So it was awful. How do you respect your timeline? Oh, this is a big one. The best way to respect your timeline is to double it before you give your estimate. And this is something I do go over in my book that I'm writing. And I will go over on how to, write estimates and stuff. The easiest way is to double your time and double the time you think it'll take you, and then cut your price in half. Same amount of money. However, it does a few things. One, if you overrun on your time, by let's say it's a 10-hour project, you're gonna charge them for 20 hours at half the price. Well, if you do that and you go over by 2 hours, they're not expecting it, and you still have 8 hours to take your time, examine it, make any tweaks. Where, yeah, you lost a little bit of the money that your actual desired wage. However, you have a happy customer, and at the end of the game, at the end of the day, a happy customer is what you want. Because especially as a word-of-mouth business, one bad review, it takes 100 good reviews to destroy that, to get rid of a bad review. At least that's what I've been told. So if someone likes you, if they think you're reasonable, if you're cheap, you're fast, they will tell their friends, and you'll get more business, you'll get better, you'll get faster, you'll make more money. It's a win-win for everybody, and that's really what you want. Tips on teaching other people. I've never been super great at this, because you have to assume someone's intelligence and their level of personal responsibility and commitment to what you're going to be teaching, to the shop in general, to the job, whatever. So I've always treated them like an idiot until they passed certain tests. And they were basic, stupid competence tests to see what level they were actually at. Because I've known way too many people with college degrees that weren't worth the ink on the paper. So it really does, there really is a discrepancy there, and there is no real way to account for that. Once you get past that, then things are a little bit easier. But there is no real way to account for it until you intimately know the person and you know what they're doing, what they're thinking. So that's gonna have something that's gonna be its own thing. How can you repeat the same activity over and over without getting so bored and distracted you accidentally cut off an arm? If you're doing something that's going to cut off your arm, if you're not paying 100% attention, you're either in the wrong field, or you really should just never not pay attention. Doing this, I know what you're getting at. Repetitive tasks do get boring, do get more prone to mistakes. However, the best way to compensate for that, I guess, is to do your best to just keep your eye on the prize. And I know that's not always a satisfactory response either, however. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. Really, just try not to get distracted as best you can. Alright, so this is a 5. So my maximum width here could be 2.5. So I'm going a little short of that just in case my centers are off. Oh. And I'm going to try and build this from the middle up, if that makes a little bit of sense. No, this is the bottom here. I'm just going in a very little amount with each one. And then I'm going to come back and do the do the inside radius. I will say I do have a I do have an interesting affinity for sheet goods and dimensional lumber. Alright, so what I did there is I took these two and I made them the same outside diameter because I wanted to come out sharp and then kind of go like that. I do have an affinity for sheet goods because I think it is it's not a well enough pursued artistic means. I know it sounds stupid, But hear me out for a second. I really do think that if there's so much artistic license you can have with things that are standard dimensions, and it really doesn't take that much effort because it is a standard thing. And I know there's like the 2x4 challenge, make whatever you want out of a single 2x4, and that's awesome. However, I don't know why, but it's always just been something that's in the back of my head, something that's beautiful about dimensional lumber and sheet goods that is just, you don't really find it very often. I think you don't find it, I find it doesn't get the proper appreciation from a lot of people that I think it deserves, which I guess is where it comes down to at the end of the day. That was a bit of a tangent from questions. I am sorry, kind of. When is a piece done? When is a piece done? One quote, and I don't remember who this is by, so forgive me. And this comes up on my what is it called? I use Canva to do my thumbnails for YouTube. And I'm gonna have to say, yeah. All right, I use Canva for doing thumbnails on YouTube, and they pop up quotes from different designers and stuff. And a design is perfect, goes the quote, when there's no more to add, but when there's nothing you can take away. And if you think about it, that is kind of a beautiful sentiment, because it's easy to, you want to get something down to its, especially with woodworking, it's kind of like carving stone. It's easy to take off, not easy to put on. You want to get it down to where there's nothing more to take away. You want it as refined as possible to achieve the look that you're going for, the aesthetic. I circumvent a lot of that guesswork by planning things prior to ever picking up a tool. I plan a lot. I mean, I'm an architectural draftsman. It's kind of what I do. A lot of people don't, though. A lot of people don't plan enough for the different things that they do, and that's when you get into these troubles of, you know, did you take enough away? Is it finished yet? So plan out first, and then once you achieve your plan, reevaluate it and give it a good once over, because sometimes it doesn't look the way on paper as it does in reality. And sometimes that still strikes me. About some of the things that I do plan, they don't look the same in reality as they do on paper, and it's such a striking difference that it does shock me at times. What is my formula for figuring out if a project is worth pursuing? Am I going to make money doing it? Am I going to have fun doing it? Am I going to save money doing it? Or am I going to learn something while doing it? I mean, that's basically it. It's not this big glorious thing that I can say, well, blah, 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 blah. No, it's, you know, if it doesn't meet one of those four. If not, why are you doing it? Like I said earlier, this life is too short to not do things that you love. To not be happy with your life. So, you know, do your best to be happy. Mike is back on Facebook. Look at that. Where did this jump to? This jumped around. Not a fan of that. Okay, we're back to reality here. I know economic viability is not the only factor. What are the factors that make it worth, you know? I already answered that. The shortest distance between me and what I want never takes me to the wood shop, and I can't avoid it. That would be worth explaining. I would watch it twice. Well, Mike, actually, when we did one of our philosophy sessions together, you answered this for yourself. You already answered this question. When you look in there, you see tools, you see stuff, you see wood, you see a mess, a bunch of things that you'll never know, you'll never want to touch or learn how to use in all reality. When I look in there, I see a new bed. When I look in there, I see a lighting fixture. I see a vase. I see things that can bring unique beauty to this world. Things that have an intrinsic value that sometimes can't be expressed with an economic number. And that's just one of those things that always keeps me going in there. I don't see tools. I see what those tools and products can produce. And not to be too hard on you, because I'm not trying to be hard on you for any one question or not. But I really do see beauty and value in things that I think you don't. All right, what I'm doing here, guys, is I'm not changing the diameter of the compass, because I do want this section here to, you know, be kind of straight for a few inches, and then I'll kind of do that bell curve out, if that makes sense. And I didn't really plan this. I'm just kind of winging it. But I am trying to build this as a 3D model in my brain as I'm doing it. Okay. I can use practicality as a weapon, he wants me to explain. Most people use practicality only in a begrudging effort not to overspend on their passions. You use practicality as the means to achieve your passions. I mean, I guess you could say that. I try to be as practical a person as possible. Because I think there is a really cool virtue in being a practical person. Practicality, you know, and self-reliance are things that no one can really take away from you. They're inherently yours forever. It's something that, while yes, it can be taught, it's not something that's easy to teach, I guess. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how to label that. Practicality is a weapon. For me, it's just the shortest distance between, well, what I have and what I want. For me, it's not about begrudging one thing or another. It's about seeing what your life can be and then running for it. Full steam. Three different projects he would like me to see and why. A pipe that fits all his specifications for commercial success. Oh, I messed that up. That would meet his specifications for success. He wants one that spirals down and around, that he can actually see the tobacco burning, and that has a really interesting, comfy grip. He also wanted to see one that would have a cool design to it, almost. And another one that could like unfold or was modular. There is no great way to accomplish that without having factory-like conditions. I can speculate, I can make my own assumptions and draw my own conclusions. I can even patent things. But without that, there is no real way to put all of that together. He wants to see me make a fully articulated, overly ornate wooden knight. That one will be difficult for a number of reasons. One, it'll never be combat worthy, just because it would have to be either so thin that it wouldn't offer much protection, or it'd be so thick and bulky that it would be ungainly. Now, he had this discussion with me earlier, and I'm gonna lay a little visual knowledge on you, Mike. He wanted scales for fingers, like for fully articulated fingers. This will just show you at a much larger scale. but each piece of metal wood would have to be a plywood composite, even if it's only a few layers thick, like 2 or 3 veneer layers thick. But if you have, let's say, 10 scales, this is what you're going to get. Now this is a much larger scale than what would happen in reality. And this is why, and this is why it works so well in steel and not in wood. There are a few things I can do to cheat that. I'm not going to go over the conversation verbatim, but basically I'm going to make clamshell gauntlets that have fake fingers. That they'll still be clamshells. They'll look like they are fully articulated. The scales, that's just out, straight out. The chess set. Oh boy. Chess set, yeah. That will be a future project. I'm not sure how I'm gonna do that though. Let me see how I'm doing on time and everything else, and I have no watchers, but I'm still live. Wow, I've been doing this for an hour. Okay. Yeah, there is no way for me to really talk through that. I do have a few ideas I want to sketch out further before I commit to anything. But yeah, I could do that. And we went back through all these different things with the knight, which was just a nightmare to go over. Okay, but it looks like that is the end of all his questions and thoughts and ideas on things. Let me bounce over to YouTube real quick here. Let me do a little analytics thing. Overview. I don't think it'll show me live streaming though. No. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, now that I have the outside diameter, I'm going to cut the inside, or put the cut line for the inside diameter, and that's going to be a lot more generous than the outside. So I'm pretty much just going to eyeball these. But I'd rather leave more material than take away more material. And before I cut these all out, I'm going to have to label them. much easier on these pieces that don't change their diameter. I mean, these are almost going to be, you know, just blow through it for each piece, but yeah, we'll see what happens. Cutting this out is going to be a bit of a bear on the lathe. Yeah, we'll just do that for now. And then start growing the diameter a little bit each time. See, what else can I talk about? No more over there. Nothing on my Patreon account. I do have a lot of plans, or a lot of changes coming for the future, which I hope you all are not too adverse to change. Because I want to start doing a different, not a different setup, but I'm going to start playing with the different video editing tools that I do have downloaded, different editors. Right now I just do everything in Windows Movie Maker. And while yes, it works, it is far from the best out there. I am starting to reach the outer limits of what I'm able to do. And that does bug me, because I want to keep growing and learning. And now that I'm at the end of my rope on Movie Maker, it's just not quite as satisfying as it was even 6 months ago. So all right, with these bottom ones, since they're going to change diameter so rapidly, you want to leave a big thickness here. Bigger than you think you would be comfortable with normally. Because remember, it's easy to take things off. It's much harder to put them back on again. And this bottom one doesn't get one taken out of it, because that is the solid bottom, and this is the foot, basically. So these two will get glued together once this one's marked out. These two will get glued together, and that'll start me off. I'll end up putting the spur center here and turning this one down to its internal diameter, or external diameter so I can grab it with the chuck. I'll flip this one around, and when this one's cut out, I will do my best to line it up, put pressure on it, carve out the center, and true up the sides a little bit, and then it'll just be a rinse and repeat. As the different diameters change, I will true up the sides and cut out the center section. And I think in order to do that effectively, I need to be able to clamp this somehow. Now, I mean, before I cut the piece out, that's no problem. But the larger it gets, the more it's going to want to wobble. So, I might have to make a conical piece that I can push into it. Maybe even a couple different cone sizes that I can push into it to keep pressure, from the live center. But that's it. This has been an hour and change, about an hour and 15 minutes of me blathering on and answering questions and drawing circles on plywood. This will be hopefully the project for this coming week. So guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to collect every question you have from this month, and I will answer it the first Friday project of the next month, March, April. So, any question, I will answer it in the comment section below as best I can, or sometimes maybe even I'll answer it in the next month. So you can join me, and put your questions down here or underneath any video. You can join my Facebook group, which is Knightsmith on Facebook, and join there and put down questions, things that you want me to explain about whatever topic. And if you can, join me on my Patreon. I have a few people over there which are, super generous, and they really do help me bring a lot of these projects to you guys and a lot of these videos to you guys. So if you can, even $1 a month helps a lot. If not, no pressure, it's cool. So thanks for watching, and I think that's it. So I will see you guys next time. Thank you for helping me create Thank you for helping me create a better world, one kerf at a time. See you later, guys. And stop live stream. How? Do I do this? Are you sure you want to stop live streaming? Okay.